As moms, we often wonder, am I doing enough for my kids? I'm here to tell you, you are super mama. That's because we have an undeniable superpower, our intuition, and it never steers us wrong. I call it our mom sense. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta, and I'm the host of That's Total Mom Sense. I'm a journalist, entrepreneur, wife, and mom of 3, twins plus 1. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my podcast, I interview influential moms from various industries and cover topics that all first-time parents grapple with, from getting your baby to sleep to screen time allowance, your new normal in your marriage, and how to dedicate time to yourself. Learn and laugh along with That's Total Mom Sense. This episode is for the mompreneurs in the audience. So you have your newly launched brand and have taken it to market. You're seeing steady growth, are consistently posting compelling content on your company website and social media channels, and are engaging with your audience in an authentic way. Last week, we talked about creating a buzz and establishing your brand credibility through event production with veteran Rachel Paige Goldstein. Today, we're talking about all things legal related to your business. Enter author, attorney, advisor, speaker, and idea acupuncturist, Anjali Kumar. Anjali works with entrepreneurs and C-level executives in all stages of business, focusing on early-stage tech, consumer products, and luxury fashion companies with a social conscience. She recently co-founded the Justice Department, a women-led firm focusing on legal counsel and business strategy for female entrepreneurs, executives, talent, and brands. Prior to that, Anjali was the founding chief people officer and general counsel at Cheddar, the founding head of social innovation and founding general counsel at Warby Parker, founding general counsel at TEDWomen, and senior counsel at Google. While at Google, Anjali curated and hosted the At Google Speaker Series on the New York campus, bringing Googlers from around the globe face-to-face with today's most prominent and innovative thought leaders, including Anthony Bourdain, Questlove, and Jacques Pepin, and hosted a YouTube interview series, Lunchtime at Google. Anjali's TED Talk, based on her book Stalking God, My Unorthodox Search for Something to Believe in, has been watched by over 4 million people around the world and has been translated into over 20 languages. A television show based on her book is in development. Anjali earned her BA in Biomedical Ethics from Brown University and a JD from Boston University School of Law. She's an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School and Fordham University and continues to advise nonprofit organizations, including the Malala Fund and IDEO.org. In 2016, she was appointed by Mayor Bill de Blasio to join the NYC Children's Cabinet Advisory Board and Grow NYC. Anjali currently serves on the board of directors of Happy Money, Women's World Banking, Glow Science Professional, Amplifier, Edible Schoolyard NYC, American Documentary, and the Guggenheim Museum's Global Innovation Council. She lives in New York City and upstate New York with her husband and daughter Zia. Anjali, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So take us back to your childhood. Do you find that you grew up in a traditional Indian household?
Very much so. I very much so grew up in a traditional Indian household. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I was actually born in Brooklyn, but then raised outside of Chicago and spent all of my formative years there through high school. And my father is a doctor. My mom stayed at home. She's a painter, artist. I have a sister who went to med school. Like as traditional as a first-gen Indian could get in the 70s.
Absolutely.
Probably.
Yes. And, what was a typical discussion at the dinner table for your family?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I would have to really think hard back to that. It was probably about school, about whatever happened at school that day.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't a family that was sitting around discussing politics of the day and that kind of thing.
Right.
Which is contrary to my husband, who apparently had big political debates in his traditional Indian household. But
yes.
My family was not that family. We more talked about school and what was going on with our lives. My parents were really interested in the day-to-day of what we were up to.
Sure. And what are some of the lessons that they taught you, and how has that shaped you into who you you are today?
The big thing that they taught me is to always work hard, to always be kind to people, to be a very gracious guest. I think those are the big things.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's so rooted in our culture.
Yeah,
you know.
Oh, they taught me to take my shoes off when I enter the house.
Yeah.
Sure. Which I still don't get why people don't always do.
Yeah, I know. Tracking dirt into the house. Yeah.
It's like, oh, in New York City, take your shoes off.
Exactly.
That feels like the biggest thing they taught me, and the most important lesson anyone should learn.
Right, absolutely. In your talks, you often deal with questions about innovation and diversity. As an idea acupuncturist, you bring a spiritual approach to the business world. Tell us how that works.
So it works in that I sort of look at the whole corporate body when I'm evaluating something. So I don't come in with a set of assumptions about how the business works or a set of assumptions around what you're telling me is the answer. So mostly what I do now is advise companies, and I do some limited legal work for a few select clients, but I look at the entire entity and look at really what's going on. So if you're telling me the problem is X, Y, and Z, or the problem is this performance issue, or the problem is, the numbers in a certain division, I'll kind of step back and look at everything and see what's really going on. And so I think that the spiritual piece of that is really more, I'm somewhat industry agnostic, so I don't look at only one specific industry. I think corporations and nonprofits and all of it's ultimately kind of the same stuff. It's all just dealing with a different widget, but you're kind of making, the basics of business kind of the same, and the threads of people and how people interact and how businesses work or don't work are sort of common across life stage of a company.
Yes.
So it's really looking at that kind of total corporate body. So the joke of an idea acupuncturist really started because I was going to TED years ago, and they asked for your title, and I was at Google at the time. I was a lawyer, and so I was like, well, putting lawyer at Google is a really uninteresting business card, so I had to come up with something more clever. It was before the days of chief ninja officer or whatever. It was before all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine was like, oh, what you are though? You're kind of like an acupuncturist of ideas. Like you go in with your legal contracts or with your idea about something or your diagnosis of a problem, and then it sort of unlocks the energy of that part of the company. I was like, wow, I like that. I'm an idea acupuncturist.
I love it.
Yeah, it started as a joke, and then I put it on my business cards for TED, and I put it on my name badge at TED, and it got so much love at TED, which is such a sad thing, but a lot of people. And then the editor of Wired at the time tweeted that it was his favorite title he had seen at TED, and so it just sort of stuck. So it just sort of became a joke. But it started as a joke, but sort of stuck. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I mean, acupuncturist, you're really pinpointing those pain points.
Yeah, that's right.
So very metaphorical there. Okay, so tell us about Google, firstly, and what your efforts and where your energy was when you were working there.
Yeah, so I was there for about 6 years, and I was there from 2007 to 2013, so exactly 6 years, actually. And I was mostly on the legal team, so I was working as senior counsel on ads and ads technology, so basically anything across the business in North America that was making money at the time. So everything from the big advertising relationships or agency relationships to YouTube, once we bought YouTube and integrating that and figuring out how to monetize that. I was on that team.
Sure.
Mobile, data stuff, some privacy stuff. It was kind of everything.
Yes, that's really cool.
Yeah,
as an aside, my husband's at Google.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a product manager on the DoubleClick Rich Media.
Oh, yeah.
And so, Neil Mohan was the... So
DoubleClick, the guys, the two lawyers from DoubleClick were part of our team.
Oh,
so
wow.
we bought DoubleClick in the process that I was there.
Yeah. He's still there and loves being in Chelsea.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a great gig.
Yes.
It's a really great gig.
He really enjoys it. Okay, and let's see. Tell us about, when you kind of made moves and became founding general counsel at Warby Parker. Like, what kind of interested you in this startup in particular, and to join them from the ground up?
Sure. So I met Neil years ago, actually, when I was the general counsel of the Acumen Fund. He was running a nonprofit that we funded, and so he just remembered me from that time. He went on to business school and then started Warby Parker, as most people know who follow that space.
Yes, of course.
With a bunch of friends. And then when it came time looking for a general counsel, I think he remembered me. We ran into each other at a tech conference in the meantime, and he reached out. I was like, well, would you consider taking on this opportunity? This is what we're looking for. And I actually said no. And I was like, well, I might know some people, so let me think about it. He said, well, will you at least meet me and talk about it? So I took the meeting. So lesson number one, always take a meeting, because you just never know. Right. And we caught up, and he started telling me all about what they were building. doing in the business, where they were in the trajectory, the life cycle of the company, and what they needed the lawyer. And then to sort of sweeten the pot, he was like, well, you could do a second job too. You could be the head of our social innovation efforts. And because my background prior to Google was actually a nonprofit, and he knew that because we had worked together when I was at a nonprofit. I was really intrigued by that opportunity, the idea of combining business, doing good business with doing good in the world, and what that could look like in a day-to-day way.
Right.
And so I was super intrigued, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So I left, what was a really innovative tech startup to go to a company that was really breaking the mold of how consumer products were sold. And not that it was a technology company, but it sort of behaved a lot like a tech company. So it was an interesting, transferable, skill set in a way in terms of being nimble and things moving fast and all that kind of thing, but still wearing a legal hat for a lot of.
Absolutely. Now tell us about the Justice Department.
Sure. So that's the most recent venture that I co-founded last year with a colleague, JJ, who continues to run that show. But the Justice Department is really to focus on women entrepreneurs, creatives, executives. And the idea behind it, from my perspective at least, was how do we take all the things that I've been doing my entire career and turn it towards women? So I've made a lot of men very rich, not me personally, but me as part of a big team that made a lot of men very wealthy. And there's some really good men that have made a lot of money on my back, and I feel good about that. But what does it look like if I can direct some of my time and talent towards women entrepreneurs and help them in that same way? And I feel like what it looks like is it changes the power dynamic, because money is power. And if we can change where money lies, then we change a lot of other things in our society. We change who's elected in this country. We change the social issues that we have to deal with. We don't have the same climate change issues or the same homeless children issues. Like, we don't have a lot of the same issues that we currently have because men are in control.
Right.
So that was, at least my interest in co-founding the Justice Department. And as well, that chugs on. What I'm doing now is a broader base than that. So it's not exclusively women, but most of my clients end up being women, people of color, and there are some great men that I'm working with too.
Sure.
So my rule is more of a no asshole rule than a specifically only women.
I like that.
So I think I sort of disproportionately fall into the women, people of color sort of bucket, because more of them tend to not be assholes and are willing to seek out my help.
Yes.
But it's really advising them on anything that they need to help their companies soar.
Sure. And so who are some of your ideal clients, those who are listening?
My ideal clients, it's been really lucky. It's been a lot of word of mouth. So I haven't really hung up a shingle looking for companies to advise.
Right.
I'm industry agnostic, as I said earlier, but so being industry agnostic is everything. I cover everything. So it's all in terms of the companies I advise now, I'd say I'm probably advising about a dozen companies. Everything from a direct-to-consumer lingerie brand to a CBD company. So it's kind of all over the map. They tend to be earlier stage, so that's more my sweet spot. Is kind of a pre-seed to a Series A is kind of the right place, I think, to bring me in as an advisor.
Right.
I'm on a few boards. Those are later stage companies, anywhere from like a B to a D. The operating roles I've had have certainly been later stage. If they're bringing in somebody at my level, it's usually later stage, like Series B, C, D, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And then on the legal side, it's again all over the map. I haven't taken on a ton of legal clients. I'm being pretty selective in who I represent. So it's more kind of word of mouth.
Sure. And so for the entrepreneurs who are listening, what are some of the, legalities of the business that a general counsel, helps with?
Oh gosh, it's really everything. It can literally be anything under the sun. I don't think it's reasonable to expect your general counsel to know absolutely everything. The word general is quite key in the description of counsel.
Sure.
At least a good general counsel, I think, should be a little bit like your GP.
Yes.
Not, the person you're going to go to for heart surgery or to deliver your baby, but like the person that you're helping to tell you, hey, I think you're pregnant and you should probably go see somebody about that. That kind of thing.
I like that.
Right? So that's how I think of a general counsel. And I personally happen to have a deeper expertise in the area of tech. Obviously, having worked at Google for so long, or in consumer products, worked at Warby so long. There's worked in media for a while, so something around that. So I happen to have a deeper bench strength in certain areas, just because of the time I've spent on it. But I don't consider myself like a copyright expert, or, a trademark expert or anything.
No. Yeah, that makes sense. I love that it's an overarching kind of view that you can provide the CEO and really be their right-hand woman women through the process of growth. That's really great. You've got a book, Stalking God, My Unorthodox Search for Something to Believe in, and you've given a TED Talk called My Failed Mission to Find God and What I Found Instead. And in it, you explain how, there was a point in your life where you were spiritually homeless. You grew up in a family that was Hindu and Jain, yep, specifically. And then there was, the concept of non-absolutism, which you explained. You want to just touch on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, basically, the concept is that no one can hold absolute knowledge of truth,
right?
Even when it comes to religious,
right? And the onus is to become godlike in ourselves as well. A little contradictory, but then it makes sense. And you studied in Catholic school, so I feel like you were exposed to so many different religions and ideologies from a young age, and you categorized yourself as a nun, meaning spelled None. So to clarify, and in the talk you talk about how nuns, those who are unaffiliated, they skew young. There's 56 million religious unaffiliated nuns. This was as of 2014. 1/3 of the adults are between 18 to 33, and 68% of them believe there is a God. They just don't know who it is. So when you went on your spiritual journey, you set out to find the meaning of life, and you went on a spiritual pilgrimage. You're looking for answers. You were in the mountains of Peru, learning from shamans. You went to Burning Man. You practiced transcendental meditation, did laughing yoga in South Africa. You convened with angels, saints, goddesses, witches, and faith healers like Amma, who is the mother who hugs. And you even hired a medium to convene with the dead. Just tell us in a nutshell what this spiritual journey was like. To live vicariously through you.
It was a very authentic journey. I know it sounds like totally kookadoodle when it's repeated back in rapid succession, but it really was an authentic journey, and it took place over many, many years. Some might say 47 years, right? But it's certainly over the past 10 years since my daughter was born.
Sure.
But the genesis of it really was her birth. When she was born almost 10 years ago, I just realized I didn't know what I believed about religion and spirituality and the big questions in life that one could not Google answer to, right? So things like, what happens when you die? Is there a God? How do you find happiness? All those sorts of things. And ironically, I worked at Google at the time, right? So I was aware of Google. Yeah. And I was really used to people coming to me with questions and being able to answer them or find an answer if I didn't know the answer. So that was my job. That was my literal job. And then I realized that one day this kid was going to ask me things that I wouldn't even know where to start because I hadn't really thought about it, even though in a weird way, my whole life had been preparing me to start asking these kinds of questions because, as you mentioned, I had been raised with a lot of spiritual and religious traditions around me, and none of it had really been forced on me. So my family is very much Jain. My parents practice, but they don't push, so as much as we were raised in a traditional household, it wasn't a super religious household by any stretch. They sent us to Catholic schools, you mentioned. So they were very open-minded about all these things. My sister's married to a Sikh guy. We're very open in that way. And I think because of that core belief of non-absolutism within the Jain religion, they really practice that as well. Right?
Yes.
So it wasn't until my daughter was born that I was sort of thrown into this conundrum of well, I don't really know where to start if she asked me these things. And it suddenly took on this super sense of urgency. I really needed to find answers for my kid.
Right.
Because that's what parents want to do.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We're problem solvers.
Yeah, totally. And anything for your kid. Whatever she needs, I'm going to do that.
Right.
And she wasn't even asking the questions.
You just want to be prepared.
I'm going to be ready. I'm going to do the research now. And so that's how I started the research and started the project. And it really started innocently as a project. I'm I'm just going to go talk to this faith healer. I'm going to go attend this random service. And a friend of mine told me about this guy who talks to angels and whatever. I would just sort of do stuff. And then it's returned into a thing. And I would do something every month. And it became a bit of a conversation between my friends and colleagues where they'd be well, what are you up to this month?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to explore the teachings of so-and-so. And I'll be delighted and want to hear more.
That's so cool.
And then I realized that just people were really really curious about it. So it just kind of evolved from there, where people started telling me about who they were looking at, or what they were reading, or their belief systems, or the things that they had questioned in the past. And I realized that everybody was secretly looking and not talking about it.
Sure.
So I thought that was just really interesting.
Yeah.
And then many years later, I ended up getting a book deal and wrote this book about my journey, or, and my conclusions, or lack thereof, depending on your perspective. And then that turned into a TED Talk, and the rest is history again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But is there something that you've, unilaterally discovered that this is what was enlightening to me through that entire journey?
Well, I don't have an answer about whether or not there's a God. Or
okay.
So sorry. I'm definitely not here to tell you. I'm definitely not here to answer that question, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have my own podcast about that. But
exactly.
I definitely don't have any answers.
We could just dial into him or her right now.
Call me anytime. No, I think what I did find is sort of, the conclusion of the book and the TED Talk as well, is that ultimately we all go about these different searches in so many different ways, but we're all looking for the same things, which in my research turned out to be health, happiness, and love. And that everybody is looking for those same three things. And we're focusing so much on the things that divide us and the things that make us different, as opposed to the things that really bind us together, which is that common search. And unfortunately, that's sort of the root of all our problems.
Absolutely. And what do you feel defines happiness for so many?
Oh gosh, what defines happiness?
Yeah, like how can you attain this?
No, that's again, I would have my own podcast. I don't think anyone knows. I think everybody's chasing this external fulfillment to make them happy. And I think sadly, but maybe unfortunately for them, it really comes from inside. So you kind of have to do the work on your own. You can't look for something else to make you happy.
Yes.
Nobody else is responsible for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not anything extrinsic. It's something that comes from within.
For sure.
And what is it that makes you feel truly happy?
I feel very lucky and blessed for the journey that I'm on. It's been a really fun ride to date, and certainly not without its ups and downs, but I feel like directionally correct. And I feel like if something does happen, I'm able to pull myself back up and kind of dust off my knees and keep going. So I'm grateful for the strength to be able to do that, and for the support system around me of my husband and my daughter and parents, my sister and my friends and family, extended family, to help me do all of that. I feel really, really lucky. And I work hard to maintain that community for sure. And I think that's kind of the most one can hope for.
Yes, absolutely. You are such a seasoned speaker. And in one of the TEDx talks you gave, you encourage us to transform the norm. Can you tell us what that means and how we can do that?
Yeah, so the context of that talk was more about Warby Parker, the idea of doing good in business. And so that the norm of business to date has always been a sort of bottom line of shareholder value and monetary gain and that sort of thing. And it's like, well, what is that norm? That baseline norm looks different. Right. And we start thinking about other bottom lines as well. And so that was really the idea behind that. And I think it's possible to do now. I think it's possible to start a business with that idea of how do you do good in the world baked into whatever you're doing from the get-go. And I think honestly that's the only way to do it in a truly authentic way, and in a way that will carry through the entire life cycle of your business.
Absolutely. So keeping sustainability and really impact and purpose in mind as you grow an idea or venture.
Absolutely. Because if it's important to you at the outset, it'll stay important to you, throughout. And I think for anyone who's like, oh, well, when I get big, when I hit X million in revenue, when I have X number of employees, then I'll start caring about diversity. Then I'll start caring about the environment. Then I'll start caring about labor conditions in my factories or whatever. It's like, you're not gonna just start it now and do it from the get-go. Right. And make those tough decisions now, even when it's expensive. Yeah. And then set yourself up for that to always be the way you do business, as opposed to waiting until it's so much harder to go back and make those changes. And then when nobody cares if you do, because then it's a lot harder to then be like, well, now I really care about these things.
Exactly.
And for your customers to believe you.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It just comes off very inauthentic. Yeah. Do you feel like that's kind of of the weed out process because everyone and their mother, given the podcast, has a startup idea. But to really sustain, it's only just like that top percentage that actually make an imprint, right? And so is there like something that sets them apart from the rest? That
I think there's a lot of things that set people apart in terms of successful entrepreneurship.
Right.
I mean, I think unfortunately the playing field is really not level to begin with, and so a lot of people who are hailed as heroes in the startup world, they had a lot of advantages thrown their way in terms of familial support or the like to get their ideas off the ground, right?
Yes.
So that they weren't paying rent or they were doing it out of their dorm room or out of their parents' basement or whatever. And like that's a pretty big luxury to not have to have basic expenses met by a job, like most of us, to be able to go out and start, pursue your dream of a startup. So assuming that you've got, a great idea or that they've actually got the resources to pull something off. Beyond that, what really separates the good from the not so great, I think, is does this idea really need to exist, right? Like, are you actually a solution in search of a problem or a problem in search of a solution?
Wow.
And I think a lot of what I see, unfortunately, is a solution in search of a problem. It's like just because you have this idea doesn't mean it needs to exist in the world. And that's really tough feedback for people, but it's true. It's like, so the first thing I would suggest is really sit back and think, like, do I really need to make this company? Like, is this something that my solution is the only solution out there or the best solution out there? And if no one else is doing it, why not? Is it because nobody's thought about it? Is it because people have tried it and failed? Is it because it's not been well executed? Or, like, what are the reasons that it hasn't been done before? And really sit hard and think about, like, really think hard about that because it's a long road. And once you start a business, you have to be willing to put in years and years and years of tough work, to not, to make it anything. So just knowing that this is the idea and this is something I'm willing to do to the exclusion of everything else in my life. Then go for it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you definitely have to be very intentional. And I love how you explained that, like, there could be a ton of solutions, but it's like, are you really solving this problem? And are you uniquely solving this problem in the best way possible? Because if there's an easier app or what have you out there, then what sets yours apart? It's brilliant. The TED Talk platform has garnered over 4 billion views, with the Oscars tallying 29.6 million viewers. And you mentioned the WWD. TED is like the nerd red carpet for the Met Ball or Oscars. So just like your fashion choices matter on those stages, they can also matter on the TED stage. And I love that you I guess are so attuned to fashion and, particularly a woman's fashion choice when she's giving, a large scale speaking engagement like that. So what do you find is something that female speakers should gravitate towards when it comes to their fashion decisions?
Yeah, I think wear something you're really comfortable in and that you feel really like yourself in. It was a funny article because Women's Wear Daily reached out to me because I was wearing a designer that they were profiling, Maria Cornejo, who has now become a friend of mine because I wore her at TED. And she was being profiled in that piece because a lot of women on the TED stage had worn her in a row. And so I think because of that, they sort of noticed this trend and then they were like, oh, well, why do women wear Maria on the TED stage? So they reached out to me for comment, and I actually pulled something from my own closet to wear. It's not like I was borrowing stuff from her. It was like a jumpsuit I bought at a sample sale for $300. But it was because I felt great in it, and I felt like myself, and I felt comfortable, and I knew I wouldn't be fussing with my clothes, but I felt pretty, but I felt strong. I felt like all the things I wanted to feel because I originally had bought something. I had bought a pair of trousers and a blouse, like something really simple, and these spiky heels, and it was ridiculous because the idea of wearing spiky heels, like I'm not 25 anymore.
And you never wear them maybe on the regular anyway.
I would have been so uncomfortable. My feet would have been killing me. And I would have been so conscious of what my feet were doing the entire talk that I would not have felt steady in my feet. I almost wore gym shoes on the TED stage.
Oh, cool.
I thought about it and I was like, no, that's probably, maybe I should elevate a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I was like, I'm not gonna. So I think wear something, my advice to anyone who does a lot of speaking is just, and to anybody really, just anything you're doing, just wear what you feel great in. Don't worry about about what's trendy.
So now tell us about your motherhood journey.
Oh, my motherhood journey was a bumpy one. So it's been wonderful since becoming a mother, but I went through multiple IVF cycles, failed IVF, otherwise I'd have a lot of kids running around. But I went through several miscarriages before having Zia. And then once I got pregnant with Zia and carried her to term, my pregnancy was actually totally uneventful. So the journey up until that point was heartbreaking and full of missteps.
Sure.
But then the journey once she got in there was pretty smooth, touch wood.
Yes.
And then since then, again, she'll be 10 in about a week, and she's been a delight. She's so fun. Yeah, it's been really great. I mean, I'm super spoiled. I know all mothers probably say this about their kids, but my kid really is the best kid.
Yeah.
So sorry for the other kids, but my kid might be the best kid. She's just like a really good kid. I'm really lucky.
Yeah, and you feature her on social a lot. And
she doesn't like it. I have to stop doing that at some point.
No, but I mean, it's nice to get a glimpse because she is so precocious and so strong-willed, and she's a woman all her own, in the making, which is
a little young lady all her own.
Yeah,
not a woman yet.
Exactly.
She's only 9. She just looks tall. She's really tall.
Right. And I mean, speaking of all things spiritual, I do believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And so it was Zia that was meant to be your daughter.
Yeah, so that is for sure true. And she is a very strong-willed little kid she held in there. So here she is.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's her dynamic like with you and your husband?
Oh, she's really fun. She definitely, I think, prefers my husband as a playmate. She used to call him Mama when she was a baby, and then called me Papa, which was super annoying and in retrospect adorable, but really annoying at the time.
Yeah.
And so they are attached to the hip, they're total buds. And she gets her nerdy from her father, and she gets her personality and charm from me. And she gets her humor from me, we say. But
that's cool.
She's a great kid. She's a kid all on her own. She's doing her own thing.
Yes. Oh, that's so awesome. And what are some of the lessons that you hope to teach Zia and impress upon her?
Well, probably similar to what my parents impressed upon me, right? It's work really hard, be kind, take your shoes off when you go in the house, stay hydrated, that kind of stuff. I think wear sunscreen, that's important.
Yeah,
put sunscreen on your hands, also important.
Okay.
That's where you show age.
Yeah, okay,
and your neck too, that's important. But I think if I can just show her how to be a kind person and demonstrate that, I think I'll do my job.
Yes.
Everything else is kind of up to her.
Yes, it's true. As the Dalai Lama said, kindness is his religion.
There you go.
And I feel
Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
Something in common.
Yes, exactly. So is there a point in time that you can share where you're like, I trusted my mom sense in that moment?
I don't want to embarrass her, but there was a time when she had lied about something that was happening at school, and the teachers were very, very concerned, and they called me, and they didn't know that she had lied. There was this incident happening at school related to her.
Right.
So it was like a victimless crime because she was the victim of this made up crime.
Okay.
And then as she was telling me the story, I was like, something up. And I was like, oh my God, I think she's lying, and I think she's the one who has committed this crime. And
wow.
And I didn't say anything to the teacher.
How you figure that out?
It was just so, I don't know. It just because the whole thing just didn't add up, and the teachers, to their credit, were being so deferential to her, and they're like, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Yes.
What's going on? It was sort of like a light bullying incident.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
There's no way this is going down. And so I basically got a confession out of her because I was right. But and my husband was mortified. He's like, why would you even think that she would lie?
Right.
Why would you say that? I was like, because I know her. And there's no way. This does not make sense. First of all, she's not the kind of kid that somebody would bully in this way. The specific situation just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But also the way she was telling the story, I was like, there's no way. So my mom sense definitely kicked in.
There you go.
But then I had to have her apologize to the teachers and go through a whole thing. She will never do that.
Yeah.
She will never pull that again. But
let's not forget our quote of the day.
Is there a quote that you live by?
There's a David Bowie quote that I love, which is, I don't know where I'm going from here, but I promise it won't be boring.
That's great.
That's one of my favorites.
Yes. And it won't be. I mean, I feel like the way that you've lived your life up until now is just, it's so inspiring because you ask those questions and you're seeking that growth, and it shows.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's now time for Mom Haul, when we share products we love.
So is there a product, it could be even one of the ones, the companies you're working for, that you are just absolutely loving right now and want to share? It's like talking to your girlfriends.
Gia Penta for lingerie.
Mhm.
It's like La Perla meets technical sportswear. It's really great stuff. It's
Oh,
so
wow.
comfortable. I'm not a lingerie connoisseur
Yeah.
until I started advising this company, and I absolutely love what she's doing. So definitely check that out, especially because it's like the perfect way to feel like a little sexy,
Yeah.
but then
But
actually
comfortable.
functional.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really, really, really great stuff. I'm loving skincare by both Pratima and Infiore. Like
Mhm.
anything from them, all natural, really clean ingredients, all botanical. I've been doing it for years, and
Yes.
just beautiful products. My skin feels amazing. I love all of their stuff.
Of course, where can my audience find you?
You can find me on Twitter, where I mostly tweet random stuff about Donald Trump right now, so apologies in advance. That's at Anjali Kumar, or on Instagram at Anjali Kumar.
Great. Yeah, but thank you so much. It was an absolute honor to meet you and have you on the
you're so
show.
sweet. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. How amazing was that episode? Anjali is a wealth of knowledge, and to think she spends so much of her life being curious and wanting to learn more is truly remarkable. I hope you got some great takeaways from her. I want to thank you all for leaving your reviews on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all the platforms that you're listening to That's Total Mom Sense on. I wanted to share one of the reviews now, and it was by Lisa, and she writes, "Great podcast. I love it. Great interviews, awesome guests, and Kanika does a great job of asking amazing questions. Perfect podcast for moms." Lisa, thank you for being a fan and a supporter. It's listeners like you that keep me going, and I'm so happy to have you in my corner. If there's a topic or pain point that you're grappling with and you want me to cover, write to me at thatstotalmomsense@gmail.com. I read all of your messages and respond to them, and I really appreciate the human connections that I get with my audience. So thank you for that. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. It's at KanikaXOXO. And check out my website for updates on the podcast and events that I'm doing. And that's totalmomsense.com. Remember, always trust your mom sense. Stay strong, super mamas. See you next time.
That's Total Mom Sense.